Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome back to my channel. I've got a big cup of tea, I'm in my comfy chair, and today I'm going to share 5 books that you should read over your holidays this season. The holidays can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people, and you might be looking for something a little bit different this holiday season. So the books that I'm going to be recommending today have absolutely nothing in common with each other, and I'm recommending them for very specific reasons that are all very different. So if you're looking for a particular vibe or something to occupy your time with over your holiday at the end of this year, then check out one of these books. We'll get started with more of the cozy, warm, hug, hopeful vibe book recommendation. That is A House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is rapidly becoming the book that I recommend to everyone, like just sort of my blanket book recommendation. And I think it's because it will work for a lot of different people. I don't think there are very many people who will read this book and be like, I hated this. Because I just don't think that you can. Whether or not it becomes your favorite book ever is a different matter completely, but this book is just so warm, it's so cozy, it's hopeful, it has adorable, magical children, it has complicated but also very simple themes, and I think everyone of all ages is going to get a lovely, warm, just cozy hug out of this book. This follows the main character, Linus, who I think is in his mid-40s, and he works for the Department of Magical Youth. His work gives him a task to travel to a faraway island where there is a top-secret orphanage holding the most dangerous of magical youths, and his workplace wants him to make sure that the place is safe because one of the children could potentially destroy the world. So uplifting his whole life, he travels to the house in the Cerulean Sea, where things are not quite what he expected. To sound like a broken record, it is cozy, it is hopeful, it is found family, it has some of my favorite children characters ever, it is adorable, and I hope that you absolutely love it if you are looking for a cozy read and you have not yet picked up this book. Swinging in a completely different direction, the next book that I'm going to recommend is one that is more quiet and contemplative, and I think would be best read over a long period of time, so kind of over the course of December, or maybe even perhaps just over your whole week-long holiday or however much time you have off, and that is going to be A Song for Arbonne by Guy Gavriel Kay. This is a book that I mention a lot on my channel. It's one of my favorite books ever, but it's not actually a book that I think I have actually spent time explaining and describing to you before. It is not actually set in France. It is a different world. There are 2 moons, there's different names for everything, but it is very clearly heavily inspired by 13th century historical France, and particularly it is about a religious conflict that took place between basically Catholicism versus the Cathars, but none of those specific terms are being used here. The southern country here is Arbonne, and it is ruled by a woman. They have a very important female goddess, and they are all about love and troubadours, whereas the northern country of Gorhot is more of your strict, conservative, heavy religion, Catholic sort of a vibe where women are basically nothing. The main character, Blaise, is a mercenary. He is from the north, but he is currently working in Arbonne, and he very rapidly kind of gets embroiled into the southern politics of Arbonne. This book is very quiet in tone. It is also very introspective. It is very thoughtful. It is a little bit sad. We do follow the lives of all these characters, and particularly the impact that each individual character has on what is happening within the politics of Arbonne and Gorhot, and this impending conflict between the 2 countries. Guy Gavriel Kay's books have great endings, but they don't always have the ending that you want. And what I mean by that is that if there's a princess, she's not going to marry the stable boy. It is still very beautiful. It has one of my favorite mic drop moments ever, and a very complicated dynamic between our characters and what we want to happen. But if you are looking for something a little bit quieter over the course of the holiday season, this book actually is split up into the seasons, so it begins in the spring and ends in the winter. It is very full circle, wrap up to the year, wrap up to the story moment. Next up, we have a book that I don't physically have, and that is The Counselor by E.J. Beaton. This is a book I think will be good if you are with family over the holidays, if you have an interrupted reading schedule. I think this one is going to work for that situation. It is a Machiavellian political fantasy, but the plot is not that complicated. This is much more a character book. It has beautiful lyrical writing, but I think it is going to be one that can be easily stop, start, if that is the situation of what's happening. So I think that this one is going to be great for that. It also has extremely long chapters, but they are chapters that feel very complete at the end of each one. So if, for example, you have to put the book down because family stuff or whatever, then you're not going to be like, I'm chomping at the bit, like, how could you interrupt me right now? I need to pick up the next chapter. In fact, even if sometimes it ends like with a reveal, it's not where the next chapter is going to pick up. There's usually like a little bit of time has passed. So it's not like you're going to have that sensation of you're stopping in the middle of an action sequence and you need to know what happens in the next chapter. The setup for this book is that our main character, Lysand, is the palace scholar, and when the queen dies, she is given the role of the counselor, and that is the person who is responsible for selecting the next ruler out of the various city rulers within this sort of city-state empire. Lysand also suspects that the queen was murdered, and so while she is trying to not only select the next ruler, she's also trying to figure out who murdered the queen and suspects any of the 4 people who are about to possibly benefit from her death. And at the same time, she's also temporarily in charge of their country or empire and is discovering that maybe she also really likes to rule herself. So if you are looking for some political fantasy that isn't too complicated, that you can absolutely definitely keep track of everything that is being given to you and the relationships and who everyone are, there is a very limited cast of characters here. So while it is political and intriguey, there's not a million characters to keep track of. You have a limited number of players and a relatively small magical component that is elemental magic. And even the mystery itself is not overly complicated. There's definitely possible suspects, but it's sort of like, that's it. It's only these suspects. It's going to be one of them. And so it's a very contained book. And because it is a slower, less action-paced book, I think this is going to be a good book to read if you are expecting a lot of distractions and interruptions in your reading over this holiday. Another book that I'm going to recommend for the holiday season is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames. I don't have that book, but I do have the sequel, Bloody Rose. But I will talk about Kings of the Wild and not Bloody Rose specifically. But I think that this is going to be a great book if you are looking for something that is a little bit more uplifting, positive, and humorous this holiday season. It also does not have a particularly complicated storyline. It is D&D inspired, but I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, and it did not impact my reading enjoyment at all. This is kind of the getting the gang back together sort of a setup where we follow a mercenary band that is heavily and clearly inspired by rock bands of the 70s, but they are mercenaries who fought monsters. They have been broken up for a really long time. They're all old men and their lives have taken various paths over the years, but they have to get back together when one of the characters' daughters goes missing in this conflict that is happening across the world, and he wants the band to get back together to go on a final mission across the world to save his daughter. This is actually told not from that guy who was sort of like the front man of the mercenary band, but from the perspective of Clay Cooper or Slowhand, who is kind of the always forgotten member of this mercenary band, and he is sort of styled after like the bassist in a rock band. It is your typical quest journey as they get together and pick up all of the various members of their bands and see what has happened in each of the characters' lives over the years. Chaos and hijinks ensue. These old men have such a funny relationship and they're all so hilarious together. And then of course you have the fact that it's like these old men on this quest across the world to save this guy's daughter. And you know, they've got back pain and their socks get stolen. They haven't fought in 20 years and it's just hilarious. It's a hilarious, uplifting, good time. There are some emotional moments, but overall it is very positive, it's very heartwarming. It is hilarious with laugh out loud moments. The final book that I'm going to recommend is one that I think is going to be a good, quick, short read. It is not very long. It is 266 pages, so very quick. You could definitely read this on a short to medium length plane ride, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is a contemporary book following two characters beginning in their late high school years, set in Ireland. We follow Connell and Marianne, who in their final year of school begin a rather complicated relationship. What the book is essentially following their relationship as it changes and grows over the course of university, and how their relationship and their dynamic is really impacted by the very problematic way that their relationship began when they were teenagers. If you are particularly sensitive to some of the themes in books that you read, and you think that the holiday season will be a difficult time for your mental health, then I would maybe avoid this book. It wouldn't be the best for that, because it really deals with some darker themes. It goes into mental health quite a bit in a very thorough and I thought very well done way, but something that I wouldn't necessarily want to read when I was in the height or the depths of a mental health moment for myself. I definitely wouldn't want to read this when I was in a bad place, because I would be affected by that. But it deals with mental health, it deals with anxiety and depression and domestic abuse. It deals with the complications of human relationships. As the name of the book implies, I think there is an interesting discussion here about what is and isn't normal. I absolutely felt like these are things that normal people experiences, or that like everyone experiences, but they are also things that we don't necessarily talk about. And so then what is our perception of what is and isn't a normal human experience? Full disclosure, this does not use dialogue quotations, and I have seen some readers who have English as a second language who felt that that impacted their ability to read and understand or distinguish between what was dialogue and what wasn't. For me personally, as a native English speaker, it felt like it really made sense always what was and wasn't dialogue, so that didn't bother me, but I know that it can bother some people. This is definitely a love it or hate it kind of a book, but it is a short, quick, intense read, and you're probably, if you start liking it, you're probably going to want to just read it right through. So perfect for a flight, or if you just want to sit and ignore other people and burrow into a book for a while. Okay, well, those are all of the books that I'm recommending for the holiday season, depending on what specific type of book or experience you are looking for over the holidays. Is there a book that you are planning to read this holiday season that you think will be perfect for the season? If so, let me know down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you made it this far and you just want to let me know that you are here, let's put a wine glass, so like wine or a glass or bottle emoji for A Song for Arbonne, which very wine, southern France feel, not particularly with the book, just with the setting. Okay, well that is it for me today, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what I do here. I post videos on every Monday and Thursday. I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Bye.